versus Terran?
I mean, let's go ahead and do the introductions and then we'll talk about strategy. As you guys can see, both players are ready. We are ready for this elimination match in the lower bracket. The final one, who's going to make it into the round of 24. Top right side, we're taking a look at the main base of the world champion of StarCraft 2 in 2016. It's ByuN.
On the bottom left-hand side, the two-time world champion. Back-to-back, not really back-to-back. It is SOS!
Almost back-to-back. I believe there was 1 year in between, right?
Yeah, close enough.
Indeed. I think Pillars of Gold, it quite often comes down to Protoss going up to 3 bases before the Terran, and then Terran makes that big push through the center, maybe gets a couple of tanks on the high ground, and then often distract the Protoss with a little drop in the main. But I think everything we know about PvT in a regular way, like that applies when you watch a game between two good players in a weekly whatsoever. This is such a big match that I'm definitely expecting players to switch it up a little bit. And I'll go back to what I said about SOS vs Dream. I want to see craziness, cats, because I feel like that's where he shines. I don't think he wants to play this super standard cookie cutter, straightforward games against ByuN, because I do think ByuN's mechanics are a little bit better than the ones of SOS.
Certainly. And SOS, I mean, he has been busy himself playing games, but we have gotten to watch ByuN's games, and I found that against Hurricane there were certain patterns, because you're talking about that push that Terrans usually go for, and I completely agree, that's something that a lot of Terrans tend to do, but ByuN seemed to be a lot more oriented towards drop play, and I saw that here, where Hurricane was succeeding the most was in denying that drop play. In the second game, the one that he took from ByuN, he always had a lot of stalkers, he always had him in good positions, and I do wonder, I think if SOS has watched those games, he is the type of player that could definitely exploit that, maybe make a few less Zealots, a few more stalkers.
Yeah, I mean, it goes two ways, right? Because then again, SOS also struggled a little bit in those scenarios in the games that we watched of him against Dream. Like, Romanticide was technically not a bad start for him. Sure, not the invisible boys that were killing everything that he was perhaps hoping for, but the Archon drop was alright and he had a lot of freedom on his side of the map. Yet, eventually, Dream still found all the openings that he was looking for, and the damage started to spiral out of control. So, I think it goes two ways. Like, knowing is one thing, but knowing what to do about it is a whole nother story.
Yeah, knowing is only half the battle, as they say. SOS playing pretty safe so far with a shield battery, and looks to be wanting to proxy something. Do you think it's going to be a Dark Shrine, perhaps, given the Templar Archives?
Yeah, that could very well be it. No, it probably must be it. I highly doubt that we want to proxy a gateway that far away. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense. It's quite interesting that ByuN decided to go for the command center on the high ground. Maybe a little bit of a mind game here, hoping that SOS would overreact, being like, whoa, you're one base? Like, what the hell is happening? But the timing of these buildings kind of says it all. Like, these are world-class players. SOS will know that if this was truly a one-base opening, that starport would have already been done, something would have been coming out of the factory, so I think he knows everything that he needs to know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, ByuN skipping out on the Reaper, it's kind of like, okay, it's one of these builds where he's going to get access to a few more units early on, but economically, he's going to fall pretty far behind quite early on.
Yeah, and he's not going to get that information, though that information could have been deceitful, since the Dark Shrine is, after all, proxied. I'm not sure how far SOS is willing to go with the mind games and maybe fake something like a Blink or something of the sorts. We haven't really seen DTs work that well, at least today and yesterday. They've mostly fallen flat. I personally struggle a lot against DT openers. What's the key here for ByuN?
Well, he's opening up with the Raven. The Raven is pretty good, mate. No, but I'm actually happy to see that. Like, I understand what you mean. We haven't seen any games where two Dark Templars walk in and Terran's like, oh no, wasn't thinking about that at all. But we don't want to see that at the World Championship, right? We want these guys to be sharp. We want them to be thinking of every single possible solution. So DT shouldn't just straight up walk in naturals and main bases and kill them. Now, I gotta say, SOS a little bit out of position for this drop. Shield battery does come in handy, but the Marines are just gonna gun it down immediately. I think ByuN should be able to grab maybe 1 or 2 probes here.
Yeah, Dark Templar actually defensively on the side of SOS, so ByuN is gonna know to keep his Raven at home. He already has a Widowmine ready to potentially scan those 2 Dark Templars and get rid of them, so neither player really finding the damage that they want. Okay, one DT will go down, but so will a supply depot.
Okay, ByuN, you should pull these SFEs. Hello, that was a little bit sloppy. I don't know what's happening. Dark Templar finding a little more success, but that's still 2 Dark Templars though, Cats. Pretty pricey units to lose this early on into the game.
Yeah, and I feel that with the Raven opener, one of the biggest advantages of making Dark Templars is that you can't move out very easily against them.
Whoa.
The Protoss player can be, whoa! Oh, indeed, double blink.
Yeah,
Right.
You don't see that super often, right? Like the double blink being researched at the same time. Blink Stalkers and Blink Dark Templars. I mean, Fear Dragon is clapping right now. He's muted, but I can still hear him, Cats.
Yeah, same. Yeah, this is quite amazing. I mean, SOS did go for the greed regardless, just of 3 Stalkers, very minimal investment in terms of units, and ByuN actually being quite gutsy, moving out with the Raven. Oh, that could be huge! The Medevac will barely survive. I think that was 1 shot away.
Yeah, I think maybe ByuN mistimed it a little bit. If the Raven would have shown up a little bit earlier, then obviously the focus of SOS is going to be on the other turret. And maybe that Medevac could have made it into the main, but I don't know if we really want to be dropping with like a Medevac with 50 HP and a couple of Marines that don't have stim yet. Like, I rarely see that turning out very well.
Yeah, and that Raven has to be extra careful because the starport doesn't want to go back on a tech lab and waste time doing that. And Medevac production has already started. The starport has been swapped onto a reactor. So I am a little bit surprised even that ByuN even tried to do that. It seems like a pretty high-risk maneuver, but you gotta take every edge that you can get.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man who likes to make Ravens against Phoenix openings. That's also pretty high risk, and he gets away with it quite often. I have the feeling that SOS doesn't have too many plans of fighting ByuN straight up. Like, he's gonna have the most mobile army possible, Blink Stalkers and Dark Templars with Blink. Great in like making sure that ByuN turns around, making him or keeping him on his side of the map. I highly doubt that SOS just wants to chill at home and be like, oh yeah, let's fight this, because that possibly can't go very well, can it?
Yeah, it would be very difficult to pull off. And here comes a big push, somewhat uncharacteristic of ByuN. Oh, the Blink DT. He's not going to care much about that wall, and this is causing already a little bit of havoc here. ByuN is talking to himself, not happy about it.
Nope, this is bad. 11 SCVs going down, maybe a few more. I don't know what happened with the other Dark Templar, but that's sick because ByuN's entire army moved out and all of it turned around. And this means that SOS is getting extra time to get ready for this at home. I wouldn't mind a couple of DTs at home at this point because they are not bad in the straight-up fight if they can just blink right on top of Marines.
So you would rather have DTs over Archons in this situation?
Yes, I think so, because once you take care of the Marines, the tanks are not that intimidating anymore. Stalkers are going to kite a little bit. This is a very big moment in this game. ByuN knows that he needs to do something because he's been falling behind economically, but his Protoss army is getting pretty big, Cats.
Exactly, and that's why it's so beautiful that SOS moves on forward and stalls. It buys some time for another Zealot warp-in, and the longer ByuN has to wait, the worse it is going to be for him. Another DT trying to make his way... Oh, that looks like no scan available, so ByuN is actually going to have to run up his ramp and wait for that scan, already stimming that army and having to pull back again. He's still on 2 base.
Yep. This is kind of that phase in the game where I'd love to see SOS be like, you know what? I survived a scary phase because my opponent didn't feel like he could break me. Take your gases and start adding a Robo Bay, right? Or maybe go into Storm. It depends what you like. I think Storm could work, but I also think Colossi would be an excellent choice. I mean, you can stick on these gateway units, but then you're basically putting all your eggs in one basket, and you need to win the moment you attack him, because otherwise, eventually, Zealots and Stalkers are simply not going to cut it.
They just do not scale well. I suppose one thing that he could do is kind of look for a denial of this third and just fight over it over and over again if you're SOS. But ByuN knows, and I mean, that's why he's so well situated here. I completely agree with you, and so does SOS, by the way, as he has continued upgrade production, dropping an extra robo as well as a robotics bay. I love everything from SOS right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, he knows that he's got time right now to get these tech units out. Everyone would love to get Colossus out in this matchup, simply because they're very good still. But it's not always that easy to get there, and the worst thing is that you die right before your Colossi come out and an interference matrix lands on the single Colossus. But he has made it there safely, so I think it makes a lot of sense that he's transitioning to the next stage of this game.
Definitely, it's those low gas units that allow for a big economy from the Protoss side as they are able to expand, not invest too much into the gas mining, and instead make a lot of Zealot Stalker. But like you said, it's an army composition that falls off. SOS has done a great job of harassing here, and let's see if he continues. It's definitely going to be Colossus like you were foreshadowing. And I think that's the right call, right? Like, ByuN is a player who has played very heavy on Marauders in previous series, but SOS is very well aware that this time around, ByuN mostly had Marines. He has been adding Marauders lately, but he doesn't have as many as he had in the previous series.
No, but I think like if you would go into Disruptors immediately, you're putting yourself in a very awkward spot because you're very heavy on the Zealots, right? There are 32 Zealots out on the map. Zealots and Purification Novas, they don't go very well together. You also know that ByuN is an absolute god in avoiding those Novas, so relying on that more sustainable damage first with the Colossus and then later on adding Disruptors is the perfect play. I gotta say, as was a little bit out of position, I think his army was powerful enough to fight this army, but he was completely blindsided by it. He is setting up a massive counterattack though with a lot of his Zealots, but that's not the place to run into, SOS.
Definitely not. I would have almost rather seen him turn around. I mean, these Zealots are doing all that he wants anyway onto that third base. I think he was hoping to find the third at the other location, perhaps. But yeah, I think if the Zealots just wrapped around and he cleared that army of ByuN, it might have been game over there for in favor of SOS.
Yeah, in the end, he still gets in the natural. As ByuN was a bit out of position, but ByuN did not turn around with his main army. SOS needs to clean this up. What's the Raven gonna do? It's gonna be an anti-armor missile. Widowmine shots are good, but it does feel like there is a little too much Protoss here, especially with the assistance of the overcharged battery in the natural.
Yeah, and all those Zealots that you were talking about, they are so very good at tanking for those Colossi, and with the Colossus being heavy in numbers, he's gonna go up to 5 actually. Do you transition after this into Disruptors? I mean, ByuN doesn't have a single Viking.
I wouldn't even mind a couple of additional Immortals, right? I think Immortals sometimes a bit underrated, but it's very nice to have that firepower in your army to just deal with those Marauders a bit easier. I mean, this is not Wings of Liberty. We can't just make 8 Colossus. That'd be a little ridiculous.
Yes, indeed. All right, so upgrades are continuing. ByuN is trying to transition into the later stages of the game as he is going to be getting Ghosts to follow up. SOS continuing to expand, and we are yet to see what he is going to produce from those Robos. I don't want him to be idle, and he's choosing Observers for now, and that's fine.
Yeah, I would like to see him spend his money, right? He goes for 7 more Stalkers. Stalkers obviously always good in controlling the map, shutting down drops, but I do think it's important that he doesn't max out on too many Stalkers, because Stalkers simply don't deal that much damage, and especially not if the armies get maxed out, you don't want to have 20, 30 Stalkers in your army. That's just not ideal.
Yeah, they're very good at deflecting medevacs and maybe helping with Vikings. Maybe he's anticipating something like that, but ByuN hasn't made a single one like I mentioned earlier. So, yet still, the army for SOS looks incredibly strong. He has 5 Colossus out here, and that's going to be enough at least to push ByuN back.
ByuN is doing an excellent job in dealing with this Warp Prism, because it's very easy to just have no units in your main once or twice, and then before you know it, 12 Zealots go ham on everything they see in the Terran main base. So ByuN doing a pretty good job in making sure the damage doesn't spiral out of control. I'm kind of still waiting for SOS to show us a little bit more than everything he's shown us so far, right? Like, his army is good because of the 5 Colossus, but what are we gonna do with the money? He hasn't been building any probes for a long time. I'm pretty sure some European Protosses are ripping their hairs out. It's like, you can't sit on 61 probes all game, and SOS is like, no, I can actually, and maybe I want to because he wants to have a big army. Who knows?
Who knows indeed. One area where ByuN has also been succeeding is the upgrades. He has done a really good job. He has 2-2 to the 2-1 of SOS, and he's actually going to pounce onto 2 Colossus, unable to clear them out. At some point, Roddy, does SOS just need to push? Is he waiting to be maxed? Or because I feel his army is so strong right now, but what is he scared of?
Yeah, I think maybe this is go time. Maybe he's hoping that one time the Zealots can actually deal a lot of damage in the main base, and that's the window that he's looking for to get his main army to the other side of the map. But I'm with you, because he's been stuck on this for a while. I love when he added the second Robo in the Robo Bay, but I kind of feel like we want to do something with his army, because eventually the Terran army is going to get better and better. We see Vikings, their Ghost count is climbing, we're getting rid of some of the Marines, we're getting more Marauders. It's like, come on SOS, you're still on like 20 plus Stalkers. I feel like you want to fight with that army, you don't want to sit on it forever.
Yes, indeed. Am I blind? Can we check the unit stat map really quick? Is there a sentry out for SOS? I don't think I've seen one. Oh, there is 2. Brilliant. All right. So yeah, I'm not sure what we're waiting for here. I mean, he's doing great at the harassing, but at some point he's just giving so much space for ByuN to continue to get those upgrades if he wants them, to get those starports situated. Now ByuN producing 2 Vikings with a second starport on the way, adding extra production, and he's maxed. And at this point, it's anyone's game.
I do feel that ByuN should start his 3-3 upgrades. I feel like he's been stuck on 2-2 for quite some time, and upgrades obviously do matter a lot. The armies are getting awfully close to each other in the bottom. I believe that was a Nexus kill, not a cancel. sOs is starting to add the first Disruptors in the mix, so that's kind of cool to see. A little bit late perhaps, but you know, better late than never.
Yeah, absolutely. Disruptors are gonna scale with these armies as there's, you know, when there's more on the ground, there's more for those guys to hit. And both armies fighting on either side, and sOs looking to take the better of one side, but on this side, the Colossi are exposed. That Immortal doing wonders, though, and that is exactly what you build them for, is to tank and to get rid of the Marauders, like you mentioned earlier.
Yep, that could have gone a lot worse for sOs, because I think those two Colossi could have potentially gone down too. But now at least he got rid of a couple of the Stalkers, and he can replace his army with slightly better units. I wouldn't hate to see a Templar Archives, not because I think he needs Storm right here, right now, but I think Storm is nice to have, but just to be able to get a couple of Archons, because if the armies don't have any Ghost, then obviously the Archons can be very successful. This is a lot of Zealots. The EMPs are massive on the side of ByuN. And if I was sOs, I wouldn't really want to take a fight like this unless I have a War Prism in the back so I can reinforce immediately.
Yes, indeed. The EMPs are gonna mostly be looking to hit anything, right? But maybe the sentries more so, just to avoid having to fight the extra 2 armor from the Guardian Shield. And sOs has already spent that, so this engagement might go a little bit better for ByuN if he can take it, but he does not want to fight in chokes.
No, I mean, ByuN is okay with losing a couple of units and replacing them with more Ghosts and more Vikings, as we can see on the production tab. I am truly mesmerized by the fact that sOs just stays on 60 probes for the entire game. This is clearly a decision, this is not a mistake. It is going to give him 140 army supply to work with, so that's pretty cool. But it also means that he never has like a massive bank to fall back on. If he loses one fight, the game is over.
Yes, indeed, and there is a big fight about to start. 8 DTs were warped in, so let's keep an eye on the map for where they are going to be hitting. Be careful with those Disruptors. Those are expensive and important units. The Stalkers are going to man up to the front, or woman up. I'm not sure what Stalkers are.
Not sure either, Cats, but a couple of them got away, so they can tell the tale. sOs is going to be able to keep this base safe. Let's see if these Dark... I don't think that's enough DTs to kill a PF. No, if we repair it, we should be fine. The repair was a little bit late, though. Okay, well, I expected ByuN to repair that a little bit quicker. I mean, sure, he's going to get it. Is he going to lose one of these Archons? Yes, at least one. That's still a lot of DTs and an Archon. Killing the PF is awesome, but it's not a free pickoff.
Where is the 3-3? It's been so long.
Yeah, that's a massive mistake at this point, because ByuN has been maxed out a couple of times. That is something he truly should have had, and I'm pretty sure he thinks he has it. He just doesn't.
Yeah, he just completely forgot. It has been so very long, and when you're maxed out, obviously upgrades are going to be stronger and stronger, and he continues to get upgrades for his heir. But yeah, I mean, you were mentioning the Templar Archives, Kevin. I'm not sure, like, there's a lot of Ghosts, obviously, but there is a turning point where maybe you clear the Ghosts, or defensively Storm could be good. Let's see. Oh my god, this is not good.
Nope. Oh, well, one of them gets saved by the shield battery, actually. That could have been a 3 disrupted donation. Instead, it's only 2. I'm with you. I actually kind of forgot about the 3-3. I figured that he eventually started it, but the fact that ByuN never got it. We're now 19 minutes into a TVP. And that's crucial, man. Marines and Marauders benefit so much of those upgrades, and it would help him out tremendously in the big game-deciding fight, which I feel like we're getting closer and closer to it, because ByuN doesn't have that many SCVs either. We are going to take care of these cannons. Can we get the Nexus? The answer is no. We will get a Colossus. Decent Viking positioning, but a lot of them are about to fall.
Yeah, and that's where those Stalkers are going to come into play, but there's no real Archons or any AoE to really get rid of those Vikings quick. Most of the Colossus are going to fall. And now it is all ByuN from here. I mean, he has, negated that 4th base from sOs, who is back down to 4 bases. But
that's
hey,
his main, by the way.
He wasn't really mining anyway, right?
Yep. ByuN has never rebuilt the 4th base, so he just floated over his main. This base is obviously very vulnerable and susceptible to run-bys. ByuN's army is powerful. It should have been more powerful, but on the other hand, sOs, he's on 54 probes. That's also not that many, so losing high-tech units like Colossi and Disruptors is very painful. I really think you can see that this is a very stressful game for both of them, because I feel like they're making a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes so far.
Certainly. I mean, the same could be said for SOS. I mean, he was slower to the 2-2 because he was working off of a single forge, but he has also not started 3-3 in a very long time. So this is very uncharacteristic mistakes from these players. It's not something that you expect, but hey, it makes for a great game, so I'm down.
And on top of that, we had a couple of disrupted donations so far, right? A bit unnecessary. Big fight on Folding in the bottom right. Great target fire on these disruptors. ByuN gets what he wants, needs to avoid a final Nova, and he does. And the rest of SOS's army, it's simply not very good. A couple of Zealots, the Stalkers, we said it before, they don't stand much of a chance against these Marauders with Stim. I don't think we want to fight near the overcharged battery, but that was a phenomenal fight for ByuN, while still not having the upgrades that he needs, but the man doesn't give a damn.
Yes, indeed, and the real story here is a lot of those medevacs surviving, right? If you look at the ground, you might think, okay, like that fight didn't go so poorly for SOS, but it's all those medevacs that ByuN doesn't have to remake, and that is where his extra supply is, alongside with this gigantic, now main army of his. So yeah, SOS is gonna get choked to death here.
I'm not sure what I'm more stunned by. The fact that SOS is like not gone over 61 probes over the entirety of the game, or that neither player is getting the upgrades that they should be getting. In the end, it does seem like all of this will work out for ByuN, as he takes a pretty monstrous army supply lead at this point. And it feels like SOS is running out of steam. I mean, ByuN is like, alright, you can have those original 3-4 bases, because most of them are mined out anyway at this point.
Yeah, and there is 7 disruptors, which, you know, you could think has a lot of potential, but if we look at the rest of the units, there's not much to offer for them. And with how good ByuN is at target firing, I mean, target firing those disruptors earlier in that fight, that was so awesome because he had to target fire the one that was actually further away first. Very, you know, it's a little counterintuitive, but yeah, that is what ByuN is best at. It's the micro, it's the little details. And yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna see him just close this game out as it goes. What does he have to do now?
Well, SOS is going to try to land those big Novas, right? That's the only hope he has. I gotta say, that's still a pretty decent army. It doesn't look like he's down 60 army supply. I don't think we should be making any forward blinks, though.
All right, all right.
A little bit adventurous.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's a chunky army too, right? Stalkers are kind of big unit size. The Disruptors are a little bit chunky themselves. Not very many Zealots, so it could be a little bit deceitful. And I think the supply is just, you know, overwhelmingly in favor of ByuN. But yeah, I mean, I think we've said it, right? I think that the economy for SOS could have been much better. I think that he could have capitalized much earlier on the advantages that I think he did have. Is this an opening here with 3 Disruptors going off? There's still 4, I guess.
Yeah, there's still plenty of Novas left. You gotta be a little bit careful. You don't want to run into those batteries, because overcharge is pretty amazing. And we've seen Protoss players win games because Terrence took a fight near a battery that's overcharged. Instead, ByuN is just going to rotate his army around. The Disruptors are a little bit out of position. You want to be careful. It's hard for a Terran to close a game out against the Protoss with 7 Disruptors, but I feel that ByuN is making a lot of the correct decisions. There's a couple of Zealots go down too there.
Yeah, I like that. Just showing a little bit of his army to try and deal with this Disruptors little by little. Another option would be to split his army, which ByuN is actually doing, as he has a massive army at the north. And I think, like you said, Kevin, I think this has got to be it. But I mean, SOS consolidating all of his army in the north. He will push ByuN back for now.
This army should go into the natural now. If I'm ByuN, I would absolutely just keep steaming into the natural. He's still microing this army in the center of the map. That is some very impressive stuff. I don't know what just came out of that robo. It could be that there is a disruptor hidden in the back of the natural, but it doesn't matter. GG. ByuN will take the very important 1-0 lead. Gotta say, Cats, kind of an odd game and definitely a little sloppy on both sides.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, yeah, to say the least, right? I think both players are going to step it up. They both have really cool moves. I love the way that SOS kind of made the advantages for himself in that game. It just would have been good for him to lean in a little bit heavier on those advantages. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I wonder if like this is one of these moments where, you know, players have their friends whisper and someone is telling SOS like, you should have just attacked him when you were on 4 bases and you had 5 Colossus, man. Like at that point your army was better. Because for the longest time, all that ByuN really had were Marines and Marauders. And I think that's truly where those gateway units and Colossi can shine, especially with a couple of Immortals in the mix. But it felt that SOS just gave ByuN so much time to start recycling the army. Then all of a sudden you're going up against Ghost with their their enhanced shockwaves. You're going up against Vikings. And then just all these gateway units of Protoss, they don't deal that much damage anymore. They don't scale very well. And let's not forget that ByuN never even had the 3-3 upgrades. Imagine how much better the Terran army would have been if he would have been getting those upgrades.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the things that SOS could have done aggressively, but even defensively, which seemed to be the position that he went for. He could have made more probes, right? Like, he dropped a couple of cannons and secured a 5th, but when that 5th falls, I mean, who cares? You're still on 60 probes, you're still mining the same amount, so why not just stay on 4 bases and kill them, or go up to 5 bases and actually mine them?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. That's what I was looking at in the game as well multiple times. I understand being a little bit worried about certain pushes, and sometimes you're like, go easy on the probes, let's focus on getting units now. And when he just stopped at 60 or 61 for the longest time, I'm like, well, the only logical explanation I have for this is that he wants to make an attack with like 140 army supply, which is a little more than Protoss normally attacks with, because quite often Protoss players at this level have 80, 82, 84 workers. Then obviously that means the armies get a bit smaller. But then he just kind of stayed on 60 workers forever, but also did an attack, and it's just a little bit confusing to me. He's going to have to step it up. Very well done by ByuN, though. Not an easy game to win. He looked a little bit frustrated right in the beginning when he wanted to attack. Then Dark Templars blinked into his natural, and he's like, you got to be kidding me, Protoss! But kept it together and played a pretty good game.
Yes, indeed. So we'll see what both players have in store for the next game. ByuN clearly not super happy with that game. I don't think that SOS can be either, but I am sure they will both step it up as they are world-class players. What is the next map? Do we know yet?
We don't know yet, but we're about to find out. But I do find quite some fun. But I think, okay, it's Lightshade, guys. Lightshade is going to be our next map. Let's just go ahead and introduce the players. In the top left side, the man who has taken a 1-0 lead in this deciding best of 5 of our open bracket. It is ByuN.
With some cool and big brainy moves, but not really keeping up in the first game. Let's see if he can step it up. It is SOS.
Before I was a bit thrown off because all of a sudden we saw the map and then, a couple of things happened. What I want to say is that normally we compliment SOS for his killer instinct, right? I think he's a really good player in creating a little advantage for himself and then capitalizing on it and just ending games. And that's kind of what was missing the most in the previous game, where he had a couple of good moves early on, got himself in a pretty decent position, but then he didn't do anything with it, and that's very unlike SOS to me.
Yeah, I mean, ByuN didn't make Vikings for so long, and that Warp Prism was kept alive in the right-hand corner of the map. It must have warped in Zealots like 2 or 3 different times, and every time it did, I was looking at the minimap to see if SOS was pushing onto ByuN behind that, and it just wasn't happening. So yeah, I am as surprised as you are.
Yeah, because that would have made perfect sense, right? Like, SOS is staying defensive, but he's waiting for ByuN to get out on the map. Warp Prism sneaks in, you wipe in a bunch of Zealots, ByuN retreats, and that's when you grab all your forces and feel confident to march to the other side of the map and then start applying some serious pressure. When your Colossi are virtually unbeatable, because if there's no Vikings, like, what is really supposed to get in range of it? ByuN didn't really have the overwhelming amount of units that he could flank that army and come in from multiple angles. So a fun first game, but definitely a bit sloppy, but I can't blame these guys. I mean, obviously a pretty stressful scenario. Winning is so much more chill, cats. Then you can play 5 best of 3s in the round of 24 and it's all good, and your entire tournament is still ahead of you. Losing this one means it's all over. Like, I guess it's hard to expect perfect play.
It has to be stressful as well. The amount of pressure that these players must feel, seeing as they are 2 of the favorites, perhaps in the entire tournament, at least in the eyes of many, to being, 1 match from getting eliminated. That's got to be terrifying. It's not what they want for this tournament, for sure.
This is worth noting, right? ByuN going for barracks, gas, getting the factory before expanding, as he's on double refinery already. This is going to give him very early access to a couple of Hellions. And now I wonder if he's going to YOLO these Hellions. The problem is that if SOS is paying attention, these Hellions should not just casually be able to drive into the natural.
Yeah, and there's no starport, so there's no potential for elevating those Hellions either. There is going to be a Stargate, though, on the side of SOS. So are you expecting Phoenix? Phoenix?
I would love to see Phoenix, but it's going to be an Oracle first. I wouldn't mind Oracle into Phoenix. I think that's actually quite decent. I mean, he knows that he's most likely going up against Hellions here. I don't think he totally confirmed it.
Cancelled the Oracle.
Oh, cancelled it. Okay, well, should have gone Phoenix all the way, Cats.
Yeah, I guess he saw that there's Hellions in productions, knows that that's not Widow Mines, and therefore cancels the Oracle. Very cool, and I think SOS has to be feeling pretty good here, as that wall is not going to falter to Hellions.
Nope, and there is no Reaper, right? Like normally if it's Reaper and 4 Hellions, you could drop a grenade, and then maybe you can bounce the Adept out of position, but that is not possible if you don't have a Reaper. So these Hellions, I don't want to say they're useless, but they're not going to be able to accomplish a whole lot. SOS got to feel pretty good about this start.
Yeah, definitely. Now ByuN is going into the mines, perhaps seeing that SOS skipped the Oracle, so I like that. We'll see if he's able to get something. He's going to need a medevac at some point from the start, but he's opting for the Viking first. I'm not sure what that's for. What, like, I don't get the Viking. Tell it.
Just to keep the Phoenixes at bay. It's very important for SOS that he doesn't fly into the mines. Phoenix are good, but very expensive, so you really can't afford to lose them. Could also be that ByuN is gearing up for a push way before Stim. Sometimes they just try to get a lot of Marines out early on and they make a little push with a couple of Marines, 1 Cyclone and a couple of Vikings. These pushes can actually be pretty good if the Protoss doesn't have Charge or Colossus.
Beautiful. So it's more of a zoning tool that's going to stand right on top of those Marines so that the Phoenix, if they want to come on forward, they're going to be taking a little bit extra damage from it, I suppose.
ByuN's going to try to do whatever he can to delay this expand from going up, but I said in the beginning, these Hellions are not completely useless. Well, they turned out to be pretty useless. SOS really didn't struggle in dealing with these. I gotta say, well done by SOS creating such an early wall-off. Perhaps expecting this play, maybe he knows it's something that ByuN likes to do. Because it's not super common for a Protoss to get your first gateway where he got it and start working on that wall-off immediately.
Yeah, you're perfectly right about that. I guess most wall-offs come a lot later. So what is the disadvantage of a wall-off like this, you think?
I mean, if you, against certain openings, it obviously becomes pretty annoying to keep your front buildings alive. And let's not forget that the Reaper can also casually hop into the main base. So it's very frustrating to deal with a Reaper if it's roaming around. But there was no Reaper. There are Widow Mines hidden behind the barracks though. Oh, ByuN. Yeah, you can see it in the webcam of SOS2. He knows that he just got bamboozled. -3 Phoenixes. Wow, well done by ByuN though. He set that up so perfectly.
Yeah, and like you were mentioning, I mean, those Phoenix are so very expensive. They are expected to get value over time. And in this case, with Colossus potentially coming up, they're also supposed to be fighting and fending off against things like Vikings. So it's a very sad loss. And he has a few more Phoenixes that are already bruised up. So he's going to have to remake them. And he's going into Immortals as well.
Yep. And now you also know you have to be very careful with these because you know there are still Widow Mines out there and you can't really afford to make another mistake like that. ByuN throws down a scan and gets a good feel for the third base of SOS. And I think he's going to be very pleasantly surprised to see that 6 minutes and 30 seconds in, that base wasn't up and running yet, right? There are so many build orders where Protoss players just skyrocket up to 3 bases and that base would have been fully saturated and up and running for a minute straight. Careful, the mines are still dead. No, he moved the mines. Ooh. That scared me.
That's rather scary indeed. Yeah, he's actually going to find them both, so that's a little nice victory for SOS. ByuN is pushing out regardless of scouting that base was pretty late. I guess a thing that he could have done is dropped his own third command center right away. Instead, he's going to look for a punish. Do you like this?
Well, it all comes down to the Colossi, right? The Colossi is not really here yet with the rest of the army, and this actually could become a little bit awkward because ByuN doesn't need to fight near the third base. The Widow Mines are here. They could connect with the Adepts. Where is that Colossus? I guess it's being built in the main base. There it is.
There he is indeed. Is there a situation, Kevin, do you ever run those Phoenix forward to soak up Widow Mines onto the army of ByuN, or is that, well, never mind?
There are moments where you want to do that, but this was not one of them as the buyer was too far away. I gotta say, I love this move by ByuN though. He's like, fine, you want to clean up my mines? I'll just go for your Robo. That's a massive pick-off because it's pretty much the only facility that allows SOS to produce very powerful units. And a few buyer units were left behind. They just run deep into the main base, grab a couple of probes. I feel like ByuN is playing a pretty beautiful game here.
Yeah, I really love that because he loads up both medevacs, but he doesn't just abandon the rest of his units. Like you said, he runs on forward, and that forces SOS to not be able to chase the other medevacs. And on top of that, ByuN kills a few units. So very, very well done. And yeah, I'm not sure who this is going to favor. Certainly the upgrades in favor of ByuN, as SOS has just now started his Forge, and he is trying to catch back up into that Colossus count by adding 2 robots at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think at this point it heavily favors ByuN. SOS needs time. If ByuN would give him time, then this game could still stabilize. But ByuN is not a man who likes to give his opponents time if he feels like he's got him on the ropes. Medevacs make it into the main base. Phoenixes will get zoned out by these Widow Mines. And SOS's money is going to skyrocket as he keeps losing production facilities. He simply can't spend his money, Cat.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. This Mines as well doing great at zoning off a lot of these units. The Colossus actually naked here. There isn't even a shield battery to overcharge, and ByuN is going to capitalize by jumping on top of it. And that was the only Colossus that was available. There is an air upgrade coming for SOS. That's not going to help him any, and this is starting to look like a little bit too much damage.
Yep, things are going from bad to worse for our Protoss here. SOS knows it. This game is pretty much over. One overcharge to save the day, and if it doesn't, I hope that Skillers will clip this. GG, ByuN takes the 2-0 lead. Pretty convincing game ever since those Widow Mines connected with the Phoenixes. I gotta say though, the snipe on the Robo is truly key in everything here. Because one Colossus, like, yeah, it can be scary, but that's not that intimidating. But the fact that he was able to zone that army out, keep it busy with the Widow Mines, just run into the natural, snipe the Robo, you could see the entire game plan of SOS is falling apart at that point, and he's like, well, may as well start +1 air weapons because I have no other way to spend my money, but that's clearly not what he wants in that phase in the game.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, if you even think about it, it's not like SOS could just, even if he wipes off the army of ByuN at that point in time, it's not like he can just warp in Zealots because they won't have their legs. And it's not like he can warp in Stalkers because they don't have Blink either. So there's not really any good options left over at that point. I love the snipe as well. We are ready to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching IEM Katowice 2021. And we have what should or promise to be a very exciting series between SOS and ByuN. So far, it has been the ByuN show. However, SOS has had pretty good openings. I am joined by Kevin Rotterdam van der Kooi.
Beautiful, man.
Hey, watch it. Yeah, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely perfect. You could be Dutch.
Oh, perfect.
Are you by any chance? No?
No.
Okay. No, I'm kind of with you. The ByuN show definitely feels like we are watching that at this point. Let's see what Game 3 has in store for us. It's do or die, obviously, for both players, but especially for our Protoss. We're going to kick things off with this man in the bottom left side of Oxide. He's up to one map away from making it into the round of 24. It's ByuN.
Micro Jackson. And on the top right-hand side, it is the red Protoss player trailing. And he has to do something. His openers have been good. He has not been able to capitalize. It's SOS.
I think that kind of sums up the series so far, right? Pretty decent start for SOS in both games, and it feels like the potential was there in Game 1 either to get a massive economy, 80+ probes, and even in Game 2, you kill 4 Hellions, you've got map control with your Stargate units. I would say go up to 3 bases a bit sooner, my friend, and I really feel the potential was there. Instead, it was all just a little bit slow. I really think he was shocked. The moment that his Phoenixes flew into the Wither Mines, he's like, and you could see it in the reaction too. He was visibly very frustrated with that, and maybe the game just kind of fell apart there. But a bit of a shame, because ByuN is not exactly going for the most economic openers himself. So it feels like there is so much potential for SOS to get things going, but it's not really working out yet.
Yeah, my heart definitely sunk. So SOS must have had a close to a heart attack when those Phoenixes get hit by the Widow Mines. Unfortunately, I mean, even then, right? Like, I feel like he was playing overly safe. He could have been doing the same thing. And like you said, just take that extra base right away. I mean, 4 Hellions, that's all the production that ByuN had. There's really not much of a threat at that point. The Wolof was brilliant, and it worked perfectly in his favor. The Phoenixes did so much. I guess maybe he was scared that there could be something like a counterattack, right? Where he maybe thought I need to keep producing Phoenix or something like that instead of dropping that 3rd base. I really don't know.
Yeah, like I mentioned during the game, there are some Terran openers where they open up with Hellions, but then they do follow it up with a Marine push. Obviously, those Marines don't have combat shield or stim, and they try to hit you rather early with Vikings and Cyclones, but it was pretty obvious that wasn't the case. And we expect guys on this level to figure these things out as quickly as possible, and especially in that first game as well. Like, so much time to get a better economy, and if you didn't want to have a better economy, that's fine, but then please attack with all the units you do have and all the units you did make. I want to point out, by the way, that 3 out of 3 games so far, ByuN is opening up with the command center on the high ground. So he's got a very safe approach to this best of 5.
Yeah, but that's also on the back of no Reaper, right? At least for the last 2 games, I believe. The first game might have also been a Reaper-less game. But yeah, I guess that is part of his plan, is just to secure things with that Marine and get the factory going a little bit sooner. SOS is looking for the information. It's unlikely to be Hellions, given that there wasn't a swap onto that reactor.
Yeah, I guess because ByuN doesn't open up with the Reaper, he does feel like he needs to get a single Hellion out just to have some map presence, and you know, in case there is a proxy Stargate, you want to find that immediately. ByuN is going to follow this up with a medevac, and he's obviously going to get very early access to this. Could maybe make something happen with a Widow Mine drop in the main and Marines in the natural, or just a Marine drop maybe with a single mine. All of this is possible. Seems like SOS is playing a straightforward game. 4-gate, Blink Stalker, Robo opening. That's the build that gave him a lot of success in Game 1 against Dream. Oxide, not a bad map for it, but maybe not as good as Romanticide.
Yeah, but when you see SOS playing standard, it's a little bit worrisome, isn't it? Because you want him to do the crazy stuff that was getting him those advantages instead. ByuN is playing as safe as can be, going for the Raven one more time. I think that a tank would have been a fine decision either way. And he's going to be dropping with these Marines. They really don't have a ton of potential. It looks scary. It's a medevac full of Marines, but they don't have upgrades yet. They don't have that stim. So they're going to be fended off easily.
I gotta say though, with only 2 Stalkers, I'd be a little bit worried for SOS if they were out of position, because then 7 Marines and a medevac all of a sudden becomes pretty hard to clean up. SOS is an observer here. I don't know if he caught that Widowmine burrowing in the side blocker or not, but it's pretty obvious that SOS is gonna be very aggressive here. ByuN has already figured it out. That's why he's getting the bunker. He's heading into that siege tank count. I think that's the first tank that's about to come out. Well,
and a second one right away as well. He's not taking any chances. This Widowmine is also gonna spot the whole attack coming here for SOS, and it is extremely committed indeed. Now, oh wow, I love this positioning as well. So ByuN is gonna be forced to push through the front. The bunker will go down, sorry, SOS will. The bunker will go down fast enough, however, and the tank is a little bit off position, but he will make his presence known by shooting those stalkers in the face.
Yeah, I think ByuN is sort of okay with it. Like, obviously you want to keep your bunker alive, but he's like, well, I only have a single tank and I want to make sure I don't lose it. So why try to defend the ramp if I feel like all I need to do is defend my command center and the mineral line? And that seems to be the approach that he's going for. I don't hate this defense from ByuN. I think rather safe than sorry, you know, in the final round of the lower bracket. No need to take crazy risks.
I like it quite a bit. SOS has already decided that he's not going to be breaking ByuN with this and moved on to the next phase of his plan, I suppose, as he is getting a robotics facility. Do you think it's going to be disruptors this time around? It makes a little bit more sense than in previous games.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, but I think it's just going to be a Colossus opening. We do have a 4-Stalker hit squad in the back of the main base of ByuN. At the same time, SOS trying to get the tanks. I mean, he got 1 tank on the low ground, but that's a lot of Stalkers that he lost. Loses another Stalker in the main base. It's just once again, Cats, a few too many losses and a little bit too sloppy on the side of SOS.
Yeah, unfortunately, and ByuN even having the Raven to spare on the other side of the map is going to continue to apply pressure. And yeah, if you take down a tank and it is a key piece to your attack, then maybe it's worth it to lose a few more resources than the tank is worth. But ByuN just didn't stop making tanks. He went up to 3 right away, so you kill 1, well, so be it. I have 2 more, and he feels safe as can be right now.
I'm definitely not feeling this for SOS because we're even in workers and that's just not how a TVP is supposed to look. On top of that, the Colossus count is non-existent. The first one is about to come out. But let's not forget that we still have that Raven out on the map. So ByuN's army is better, and then the only unit that can really do something about ByuN's army is that one Colossus. Well, the Raven is a perfect answer for it.
That is a very good point. So he's going to have to babysit that Raven and make sure that it is not lost. A Stalker will fall. No blink.
The map will show us how many Stalkers have gone down in this game. 7. Yeah, it's a few too many, man. Like, 1 tank is simply not enough to justify losing 7 Stalkers in this game. It's normal that Protoss players get a bit carried away if they open up with a 4-gate Blink Stalker. And if you take down 15, 20 SCVs, yeah, then it's okay to lose a couple Stalkers. But SOS simply has not done enough damage to lose 7 Stalkers.
Yeah, it was a heavy commitment on the side of SOS to get all of this army up early on, and now ByuN trying to capitalize, will disable the Colossus as you were foreshadowing, and there is another one, luckily for SOS. Will it be enough? The shield battery overcharge is going to do everything in its power, but now ByuN focusing it down. The Colossus is about to be re-abled, so to say, but there is a nice tank siege line in the back that ByuN can always pull back to.
Second battery is going to get picked off too. If it wasn't for overcharge there, this game would be over 100%. Instead, SOS is able to keep both Colossi alive, feels confident enough to run into the tanks. Will he be able to clean this up? It seems like the answer is yes. The Zealots helping out too, soaking up a lot of those Marauder shots. That's an awesome hold by SOS, and that's the stuff we want to see.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried there for him for a second, given that he had charge, sure, but very low amount of Zealots. It ended up being enough, as the second Colossus was timely this time around, and so 1 being disabled wasn't enough for ByuN to push on forward. Do you think SOS is in a comfortable position now? Can he actually capitalize on this?
I don't know if I want to say that it's comfortable. If you look at his upgrades, right? +1 is 30-40% in. That's it. Single forge. I don't think we have a Templar Archives, but it's a lot better than it was a minute ago, that's for sure. So we've got a game on our hands, and maybe SOS can create a little bit of an economic advantage by preventing this orbital from landing. You gotta be careful with the Stalkers.
Oh, the Colossus also exposed, but good micro with the Warp Prism to save him. A little bit of a bait, actually. SOS saying, hey, you think I'm sloppy? Not this time around. And ByuN is actually forced to load back in. And I love what SOS is doing here. I don't want to see him push in. He knows he has an extra base. Just chill here and force ByuN to take bad engagements to establish his third.
Yep, and delay this command center from landing, and that's exactly what he's doing. He is dropping the second forge. Love to see that too. Wouldn't mind a few more probes. Like, I'm sure that there are so many people watching, like, why is he not building any probes? It's like, I don't know, guys. Obviously, it feels that SOS has the freedom, has the potential to get better economies, but he's hard stuck at this point at 54 probes for quite some time. And if you're about to end the game, that's fine, Cats, but he's clearly not about to end the game. So then it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if you're starting your next upgrade, then clearly you want this game to continue. If you're starting your fourth, but can we look at the third, Mapu? Is the third even saturated?
Yeah, but no gases. He's
right.
got it saturated, but no gases.
Okay. Well, at least that's something. I guess he is going to try to rely on this very heavy, basic type army with the Colossus backbone. And I guess that works out fine if ByuN pushes into him. But yeah, I mean, even if you want to continue with this style, if you're taking another base, you are going to need to resume pro production at some point. And there we go, 3 more pros in production.
Yep. Gets a good idea of where ByuN is expanding and what time this Orbital is finally landing. But obviously, since this has been an 11-minute game already, ByuN is heading into Vikings, he is heading into Ghost, and he's getting the Ghost upgrade too. It's gonna make it hard for those EMPs to miss. ByuN accidentally made a Reaper. This was while SOS was pressuring the third. A little bit of a panic. Reaper happens to the best of us.
Yeah, and it's actually gonna give him a little bit of information, though not too much. So let's see what SOS is going to do here. I do not want to see him sit back with this type of army. We've been mentioning in previous games, it's not really the kind of thing that scales up too well, whereas ByuN, he is just making his army more and more complex. He is adding those Vikings, he is adding those Ghosts, he is adding extra Marauders and not very many Marines.
I'm actually almost sad that SOS just walked home, because it felt like he was doing a good job, right? Keeping ByuN on 2 bases, and I totally agree with you. I didn't want to see him run into that natural, even though maybe he could have been successful, because there were only 2 tanks there if the Zealots soak up a couple of shots, but that would be a very unnecessary risk to take. But I love the idea of keeping ByuN on 2 bases for as long as possible. But he just kind of wandered home, and now he's still stuck at 57 probes. I mean, his army is massive, and this is what we said in game 1. If you want to have a low probe count, fine, but then you need to fight, because this is it. You're maxed out now. He needs to take a fight. Even if the engagement is not pretty, Cats, it simply won't get better than this, right?
Yeah, can we look at the unit stat for a second, Mapu? There's so few Stalkers, actually. These Vikings are going to be deadly as well to those Colossus. One single volley takes 1 Colossus down to half health. And these Zealots are not going to be scaling either, so I am a little bit concerned at this point for SOS. Though those Archons are nice, if the EMPs do not land on them, they could be what makes SOS push on through. Let's see.
Big if. Vikings going a little far forward. Seems like they want to gun down the Prism. The Prism does fall, but the Vikings are very exposed. 2 Colossi may be able to survive, and look at these Zealots and Archons go. Finally, a winnable fight for SOS. He's got extra Zealots coming in from the right side. ByuN gets completely cleaned up, and SOS gets the fight that he was looking for, and now takes a massive lead in this game. And at this point, I'd say pedal to the metal, SOS. Don't let this slip away. Go for it.
Let's go! He's also getting upgrades. He's been very good about that in this game. So now he has a very clear edge. We want to see him close this one. We were feeling pretty grim about this game at the start, but now SOS has found a way, and he will take a first victory in this series.
Yep, you can see in the webcam as well during that fight, or towards the tail end of that fight, that ByuN was shaking his head. He's like, what? How many Zealots do you have? But perfect engagement. This was the right moment for SOS to fight. He's maxed out. That's when you want to go. The Vikings were a little bit indecisive. It's like they want to one-shot the Prism, then they went for the Colossus. They finished off the Prism, but 2 of the 3 Colossi survived. And the Zealots, well, it was a never-ending string of Zealots. They came in from every angle, Cats. Well done by SOS. Perhaps not a perfect game, but at this point, you know, the only thing that matters is the W, so well done.
Yes, indeed. And I want to ask you, Roddy, what do you think ByuN did wrong there? Was it moving out on the map against such a massive army? Like, should he have seen and been like, hey, that's too many Zealots. I'm just going to chill until I'm maxed myself?
Yeah, I think the Viking count wasn't really there, and then like 8 Vikings could be enough if the positioning is great, but that was a very wide open area, and that's obviously perfect for the army that SOS had. Like A, he had perfect positioning on Stalkers and Archons to get right under the Vikings, and B, the Zealots had all the freedom in the world to just charge and almost surround the Terran army. And obviously as a Terran, you kind of want to look for choke points. You're not going to get like the ultimate choke point because SOS won't let that happen, but this was a bit too wide open, and it really allowed the Zealots to shine.
All right. Well, it is a series indeed, and it is going to be Jagannatha to go up next. I am excited. I hope that SOS can continue to bring it back and take us to a game 5.
But let's not forget that SOS was obviously maxed out there, right? Like SOS is maxed out and has less workers than ByuN. I don't know how many workers less it was, but let's say 7 or 8. And then on top of that, ByuN was like 180-ish supply. SOS is at 200. I mean, that is as much Protoss as you can have in the center of the map. Well, not exactly as much Terran as you could have. And on top of that, not all the Terran was there. So, you know, that was everything that SOS had. And that was a big part of ByuN's army, but wasn't necessarily everything.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So it was positioning, it was the fact that he wasn't maxing out beyond that is. He could have had something like Widow Mine, seeing that many Zealots, and
Absolutely.
I think that would have been pretty effective. I think tanks were off the cards just simply because of the amount of Zealots. Those could do a lot of damage to your own army. But yeah, I think that ByuN has to be a little bit regretful about taking that engagement where and when he did.
Yep. It wasn't needed, right? It wasn't technically not needed for ByuN to fight there. I think a minute in the future, ByuN absolutely wipes the floor with that army. A few more Vikings, a few more Ghosts, a few more buy units actually max out, and perhaps this would have been a clean sweep. But hey, good news for us as we're getting another game. In the top right side, the man who has joined the Shopify Rebels right before this tournament started. He is spawning as the Blue Terran player. It's ByuN. Shopify Rebellion, I should say, but they are the Shopify Rebels, kids.
They sure are. And in the bottom left-hand side, not going down without a fight, it is SOS. And for Envy.
Something you're hoping for here in Game 4, Cats?
I am hoping for SOS to get crazy. I mean, I think we've seen him get advantages in most of those games. It's actually kind of weird because I feel like SOS got advantages in the first 2 games and then kind of fumbled. And the same thing could be said for ByuN, who had a very strong opening on defense in the last game, but eventually just kind of fumbled himself, right, by not identifying the situation. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think that if the trend continues, whoever gets an advantage in the early game is going to lose.
Well, I think that ByuN did see that SOS was going up to 4 bases, right? So he probably expected, like obviously ByuN doesn't see the things that we see. So in his mind, he probably thinks SOS had like at least 75 probes, maybe 80 probes. And that would mean that the Protoss army at max is 120 supply. I can understand that he didn't expect to run into 140 supply of Protoss in the center of Oxide, because those are just not things you see very often.
Was that the ultimate mind game then from SOS? Is this the play that we are all too dumb to understand, but he just knew?
I mean, it worked out, but that's what I feel like. It could have worked out on Romanticide 2, or excuse me, on Game 1, Pillars of Gold, right? Where he's like, well, you've got Colossi, there's no real answer for Colossus, you're close to maxing out, you don't have a lot of probes, but who cares if you have 140 supply? Because it doesn't really matter who you win. Winning is, or how you win, right? Winning is winning. But then he didn't do anything with it. They're like, no, not like that. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I feel like the easiest way to exploit something like this would be to know that your opponent is willing to do something like it, right? And then maybe you scan the third, you see that there's no gases, minimum saturation or something of the sorts, and you just sit back forever and chill. Or even sacrifice some SCVs. I mean, at some point, ByuN is that type of player, right? Like ByuN, especially in TVC, he is the type of player that when his SCVs get killed, he doesn't remake them very often.
We can talk about this opening a bit. ByuN, for the first time in his entire best of 5, is opening up with the Reaper, and he's also opening up with 2 barracks in a very early tech lab, and actually going for the early Marauders. So perhaps he is anticipating SOS to shade his first Adept to the other side of the map, and then the Marauder could potentially kill it off. Wait, what is this opening? It's 3 gates by SOS? He's got no Twilight, it's just straight up 3 gate?
Tell me, what does this mean? Is he just gonna run in Adepts? I mean, he has 2 of them already.
I think he's going Wings of Liberty on us, mate. He might proxy another gateway, who knows? This is actually very uncommon. You don't see the straight up 3 gate pretty much ever in this matchup, unless indeed you want to be aggressive. And well, that's what he's going to be. It shouldn't be that good against the opening of ByuN, as there is a Twilight going down, by the way. But yeah, maybe if ByuN ends up losing these units, this is just going to be wild, man, because neither player is really aware of what the other one is doing. We know what's happening. The Marauders are going to go through the acceleration zone. They will run into the natural. I don't know how this is going to play out at all, Cats.
It's so weird because these Marauders are probably hoping to find Stalkers. Instead, they're going to find an Adept without a Shade available, so they will take him down pretty fast. Now, actually, a Stalker Warpin, somewhat surprisingly, will attempt at dealing with these Marauders and will be successful at doing so. SOS knows too good that he can do this, and that's kind of a little bit of a fumble. On the other side, the Adepts actually make their way into the main of ByuN, so that's a little bit of extra damage as well.
And don't forget, there is that pylon on the other side of the map, so SOS could keep pressuring. We don't have a Cyclone, we don't have a tank. I think ByuN is building a bunker in the natural that's about to finish up, but if he loses that bunker, it could very well be game over. It is really important that the SCVs are in the right place to repair this bad boy.
Tank just started, and I think the bunker is close enough, and there is enough of a gap that they can get a full surround, even if the reaction is a little bit slow on the side of ByuN. I don't see how SOS is going to break this, and this is quite the investment, but at least he could deny mining.
Yeah, I guess that's what he's going for. Obviously, 5 Stalk is not enough to kill that bunker before it's going to get repaired. Yeah, ByuN will be able to get his tank out. One SCV goes down. SOS looking for a second, doesn't quite get it. Yeah, delayed mining time seems to be what it is at this point, Cats.
Yeah, I don't mind it so much, but now here is the tank, and that's gonna be shooing away those Stalkers out of here. So Blink is gonna be the follow-up. Those Stalkers are not gonna be too sad, not having accomplished too much, as there is clearly something to do still for SOS, who is now establishing a third and taking a robo as well.
Well, ByuN is gonna send out a medevac full of Marines to the other side of the map. Don't know what he can get done if he goes for the third, probably not much, maybe a pylon. If he goes for the natural, there's always some potential to grab a couple of probes, because Blink is not done yet. And even if it's going to finish up, I believe most of the Stalkers are still in the center of the map. They are making their way home. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get too much out of this drop, but hey, at least ByuN is creating some space for himself.
Yeah, the Marines do have Stim, as Mapu was showing us there. I was wondering, and if he finds a spot where he can drop, I'm surprised he went back, actually. He was unspotted there. He could have killed those 4 probes for free.
Yeah.
That would have been so many probes now for free.
Yeah, but the Stalkers are nearby. The Stalkers do have Blink. ByuN is just going to go for it. This obviously means that these Marines will have a hard time getting out.
Reaction.
Yeah, very good pull indeed.
Very good reaction on the side of SOS. Oh, a little bit of static on my end. Please continue. Go on without me, Roddy.
I'm having the same. It feels like we are just entering the void, but it's all good. A couple of probes are falling. Could have been worse for ByuN. There was obviously the potential to lose that medevac, lose those 8 Marines. I'm not sure what the Stalkers were doing. I guess they were guarding the main base. And it does feel very dramatic, Cats. I guess you have the same sounds as me. It really feels like I'm entering the Matrix over here, and it's like, wow.
I'm being warped in somewhere.
Yeah.
I know how it feels. Oh man, I'm terrified.
Wait, I have never been this deep into the void, but I'm feeling it.
Yeah. All right, this Observer is gonna spot the move out, but so will the move out spot the Observer and scan it and kill it. So let's see what ByuN can find with this massive move out. It is the type of map where tanks can come in handy. At the bottom of these ramps, there is a lot of little choke points, so we'll see if ByuN is able to find good positions. Now, also making Widow Mines, perhaps looking to be a little bit more defensive with them. Charge will be done on the side of SOS, and there is a run by habit.
Yeah, it feels like the stream was delayed there, as the Zealots were moving very slow. But now Charge is done. Absolutely perfect timing for SOS, though. Right when all the bio units were out of position. Very annoying stuff to deal with as a Theron player. Ooh, Widow Mines have to be careful they don't blow up the SCVs. I think that's kind of what SOS is looking for. Oh, I would have liked to see.
I hope he is. They're clamped up. But no, I think it's gonna be fine for ByuN. The Zealot's now too far away, and the Mines actually unburrow for damage control as the static leaves us, and now we are free again. Continue to cast.
I missed the void.
It was nice while it lasted, yeah.
So ByuN is getting obviously a good army, and I feel like I've seen this before time and time again, where it just feels that the Terran army is a little bit better than the Protoss army at this point, because the Terran has the right answer to deal with these basic Protoss units. I never want to count sOs out though. He's the mad scientist. He's able to take crazy engagements, but he needs to do something crazy, cats, because you can't just run head first into 6 or 7 Widow Mines and expect a good trade.
Yeah, especially now with this many Zealots. The tanks are going to have to focus fire the Immortals or the Stalkers, ideally, or clumps of Zealots that are retreating and not really threatening his army. There is a pretty low medevac count, so ByuN does have to be a little bit careful with those stims.
Yeah, and it's obviously going to be hard for ByuN to reinforce his army, so when time goes by, the Protoss army will become more and more powerful, but it's hard to run into that many Widow Mines, but it seems like sOs is still going to try. He's got a couple of Zealots coming in from the other side, and that may very well be good enough. It leaves the tanks very exposed, and sOs does sort of clean this up. But now ByuN has reinforcements coming too. Well done by sOs though. That was not an easy hold. Beautiful engagement, I'd say.
Yeah, very, very nice flank. And even though it doesn't connect exactly behind the army, it's good enough. The idea was there, and now sOs is going to push back. ByuN, does he have to apply pressure here? Does he just take a fourth from this? I mean, we're seeing a little bit more tech at it. We're seeing the Colossus transition, and actually 2 gases, which makes me very happy.
Yeah, it does make me happy too. I mean, I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record talking about the probe count of sOs. It is simply not as high as we expect it to be from Protoss players. One of the most common things that people talk about in this matchup is that Protoss is always economically ahead. They're always 6-7 workers ahead. Even if you are 6-7 workers ahead, that doesn't mean you're necessarily mining a whole lot more because of the mules. So if you're behind in workers, you're actually in a very problematic situation as a Protoss. But hey, sOs does things in his own way. Who are we to judge? Let's just see if he can get a powerful army out to somehow bring this game home.
Yeah, I do wonder if, because we've mentioned this too, I wouldn't mind it if he was going all in behind this. He is taking a 4th base, so I imagine pro production will resume when that is close to being done. Is sOs's game plan yet again to just get maxed out on a massive army? I feel like this map is less good, much more choky than the last.
Yeah, but that does seem to be the game plan. ByuN is very active with these units. A couple of force fields do go down. Widow Mine's getting some good connections, but ByuN finding a pylon too in the top left side. I mean, obviously, if you max out, you always have a chance, right? Even if you don't have the ideal army, even if you don't have the best upgrades, a maxed out army is something you have to respect. And if ByuN gets 10-12 workers more than sOs, once again, sOs is going to have the bigger army. Not necessarily the better army, but hey, he's going to have a massive one.
Yeah, he is adding those Archons as well, and they did good for him in previous games, so we'll see if he's able to do that. But this time around, I mean, the adjustment that we were talking about is what ByuN has done with those Widow Mines, and they are going to be deadly against this many Zealots. Yep.
I love the mines so far. I feel like they've had a lot of potential. ByuN is looking for an opening in the main base. I do believe there's plenty of Stalkers waiting. This is what makes me sad. I wish that sOs would have put those Stalkers a little bit further back, right? A little bit closer towards the Nexus, because you have the pylons indeed to spot, and then when the medevacs are in range, that's when you blink forward, you pick those medevacs out of the air. Feels like a minor missed opportunity there for sOs.
Yeah, maybe just not wanting to give into the chaos, wanting to just kind of control things, but you're very right about that. I mean, it is obviously dangerous if you're not paying attention and those medevacs unload, but at this level, you have to be paying attention. You have to set those traps. I love that, Kevin. I wish he had done that too.
Yep. Well, the upgrades are finishing up for ByuN. 2-2 is done. Let's see if he ever starts to retreat this game, because in the first game we completely forgot, but we didn't need it apparently. Man, Widow Mine's still finding good connections here. I guess the observer count is a little bit low.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the units.
Oh, very low. 1 observer, 12 minutes in the game. You don't see that super often.
Yeah, at least it's in a good position to spot the army, and it's no longer in a good position at all. It's back to IR. Do the observers even go back to IR? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but we are going to have to remake them. Vision is everything in this matchup. ByuN, one of the very best Terran players out there. If you move an observer near his army, he's going to see it, and if he can kill it, he will kill it. Lands a couple of big EMPs too. I don't know if we really want to take these fights near battery overcharge, but ByuN is doing a pretty good job staying out of range. Finds the forge and denies +2. I mean, that's a massive pickoff, cats.
Yeah, I think he got a little bit over-eager to start there, as he negated the Guardian Shield to start things off and gets blanket EMPs onto everything, but the shield battery overcharged too strong. I loved the fact that he went for that forge, and that is gonna slow things down. And look at that. I think that sniping the Forge reminded him upgrades.
Yeah. No, I think maybe started them right before. But yeah, it's good to see ByuN is getting the upgrades that he should be getting. sOs is maxed out. He's got a little bit of money in the bank, not all that much. I look at his army, Cats, and I'm not convinced that this is the army that you want to have to defeat ByuN. But hey, he got a beautiful engagement on Oxide. Maybe he can surprise us one more time.
Yeah, maybe if he can take a fight by those acceleration zones out in the open. Certainly not in these chokes. He doesn't have enough Colossi to capitalize, and those Zealots are going to start bleeding if they continue to go into that narrow choke. ByuN actually knows it and feels confident enough to engage in the open. I'm not sure if that is a mistake, and ByuN actually pulling SCVs to try and maybe close things out. That little squad of Marines, beautiful catch.
Oh. Well, he lets one of them go, so maybe not that beautiful. sOs wiped in a lot of extra Zealots. This is it. I almost feel like it's do or die. There's a lot of money in the bank for sOs. He can keep reinforcing this army for days. ByuN is losing workers now. The EMPs do show up. Look at the Colossi. All of them have taken a beating, but they're still going strong. I mean, this shouldn't be that scary, but sOs is making it this scary and could very well close out the game here, and that'd be massive.
Yeah, that would take us to Game 5, and how exciting would that be? Vision is not going to be in his favor, however, as his last observer, I believe, gets taken down one more time.
I think we gotta go though, right? Like, we are still maxing out. ByuN is clearly trying to rebuild all the units he just lost. That's a lot of Archons. What's the ghost count right now, Mapu? I see 2 ghosts on our screen. Oh, he sees 5 of them. Okay, that's quite a few ghosts, but here we go. One more time, Cats.
All right, EMPs have to go as the army goes in through the chokes, and that's exactly what happens. A blink forward, perhaps a little bit ambitious. You want to kind of shield those stalkers a little bit. I like that sOs waited for the shield to regenerate on the Colossus to go again, but it is gonna not work this time around as ByuN holds on to his third base.
What I do like about sOs is that despite the fact that he doesn't have that many workers, he does keep on expanding. Now he's got the base in the center left running as well. He still has this one near his main. He's going to drop a couple of force fields and try to get on top of this planetary fortress. This is a risky maneuver, but it could pay off in a big way. He needs to shoot at the SCVs though. We need to kill that planetary.
Oh god, but so much ByuN. There's so little AoE remaining. Only 2 Colossus to speak of. One gets microed, and that means less firepower. There is no Disruptors. There is no Storm. There is like 1 Archon tucked behind the army. And yeah, I'm not sure if going after a PF was the play. I think that killing the third was easier, and it gives you a better position. Yeah,
now I'm very worried for sOs. He blinks forward again, but his army doesn't really stand a chance here. These ByuN units have 3-3. The Protoss units only have +1 attack. They simply do not deal enough damage. There is always battery overcharge to rely on if you play Protoss, but at this point, ByuN's army is so much more powerful than sOs's army. Can't even put it in words.
Yeah, I mean, he is making some more Vikings to deal with those Colossus, and that might be a blessing in disguise as sOs has now transitioned into Disruptor production, 2 at a time being made. The Zealot run-bys are still a possibility, so ByuN not closing out the game right there and then, it could still get dangerous. If there's Disruptors, then there's a way.
Yep, no, absolutely. 1 or 2 Novas and sOs could absolutely win a fight. But at this point, his army is simply a lot weaker than the army of ByuN. I think ByuN is expecting 1 or 2 Disruptors. He's not expecting the triple Robo Disruptor production, but it is not going to help sOs to keep this Nexus safe on the left side. It is going to fall. We do have a pretty devastating Zealot counterattack. That's a lot of SCVs falling real quick.
Yeah, 80 CVs are gonna fall. However, on the side of ByuN, I mean, he even has that extra orbital command at his 4th location alongside the planetary fortress, so he is not gonna be hurting for economy as much as sOs. I think that every trade that looks more or less even is gonna favor ByuN.
It's so bizarre that this game is still in a way close and very exciting, while if you would tell me that the Terran is 3-3 and it's got all these bases and this army against the Protoss with 1-2 upgrades and, you know, honestly, mostly Zealots, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds pretty over. Yet with sOs, you're always a little bit hopeful because you know that he's crazy and he can make magic happen, and he is going to need some magic to win this game, but if anyone can do it, it's him. He's losing a couple of Disruptors though. Beautiful target fire by ByuN. The EMP with the target fire of the Marauders. That's a beautiful wombo combo.
Ice cold, and he is also ready for this run-by. He deems that he has enough army to defend, and oh, this Colossus exposed! The Disruptor is gonna try to shield him a little bit of a flank, but it is just dead meat for ByuN, who is now pushing on forward. There is very little remaining on the side of sOs, and I think we are seeing the beginning of the end here as ByuN pulls on further and further ahead. The economy is on his side, the army is on his side. This is not looking good for the two-time world champ.
That is the second time the Forge gets picked off in that exact location, and the second time that +2 attack was more than halfway done, which means sOs still only has a single attack upgrade. That is simply not enough. Trying to land good Novas will not land as ByuN picks up all of his units in the medevac. ByuN is getting beautiful trades across the board, but he's supposed to be getting these trades because his units are way better than the units of sOs.
Yeah, and the fact that ByuN has so many medevacs and that they are all out of energy really goes to show how much he has been putting his army to work. And he's been doing a fantastic job. So many Disruptor snipes. I mean, you have to be ice cold in the blood in order to get those snipes. And ByuN is just incredible at it. Looking for another one, but no, I'm gonna jinx it really quick. It won't matter, however, as ByuN just has a little bit too much, and it looks like he has done it.
Yep, yeah, it really looks like he does. His Protoss army is running out of steam. Not even battery overcharge is going to save you anymore, sOs. This is it, a heartbreaking moment for him. His journey of the Into Extreme Masters Katowice 2021 ends here, GG. But ByuN will be the Terran to move on to the round of 24.